Alrighty, football fans, it is late March, which means we are just a month away from the NFL draft. I'm Joseph Caulo. I'm here with Jacob Lev and Jack Winn, and we're going to be previewing this year's upcoming draft. First of all, let's start off with you fellas. How you doing thus far? It's a Wednesday.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm really good.
It's an honor to be here.
Alrighty, well, let's not waste any time. We're already ready for football, I know. First pick, Cleveland Browns. Who do y'all think they're gonna go with?
I think it's a pretty easy decision. I think you
Mhm.
gotta go Myles Garrett out of Texas A&M.
No doubt.
Certainly, Myles Garrett. He's one of those guys. He's a freak. I mean, I think he had the highest vertical at the combine, if I'm not mistaken. Dude's an All-American out of A&M. He should be a good fit with Cleveland.
And Hugh Jackson
And
there
Hugh-
and stuff. So
Definitely. And there's not too many sure things in the NFL, but if there's one sure thing, it's you need a guy on the defensive line to cause some trouble. Even if you're not a great team, you can get a guy like that, plug him in, and he can get sacks for you and hopefully get a few wins for their sake.
Yep.
How about the number 2 pick? What do we got?
well, a lot of mock drafts have the 49ers selecting Solomon Thomas now.
Yeah, that's what I see on almost all of them.
Yeah, because ever since their bowl game against UNC, he's been blowing up. Everyone's like Solomon Thomas is going to be the next big thing. Personally, I think they're gonna go more of the Jamal Adams route, just out of Louisiana State. I think he's a
Pair him with Eric Reed.
exactly, and I feel like I don't know. He's like a once in a generation safety. He could do almost anything that a safety has to do. So.
It's interesting you bring that up. There's the very first mock drafts, it said, 49ers, they need a quarterback, perhaps a Deshaun Watson, perhaps a
Or
Mitch
Trubisky,
Trubisky.
yeah.
But really, we've seen that change, and it looks like they're going to go defense. I will say Solomon Thomas, I think he is a solid pick for the same reason that Myles Garrett is. You get a big body guy like that. He seems to play with a lot of energy, a lot of motor out of Stanford, and he would be a good fit. But I like what you're going there with the Jamal Adams route. I think he's another guy. If the Niners don't select him, I don't think he'll be off the board too much longer after that. With number 3 pick, we got the Jay
Bears.
Cutlerist. No Jay Cutler, Chicago Bears, who, by the way, signed Mike Glennon to a deal worth, I think his salary is going to be $14.5 million a year.
Yeah, a little too much for someone who
Yeah.
hasn't really played that much in his career.
Only
not
the
too-
first year is guaranteed though, so
So it's
That's true.
it's more of a 1-year deal if they want to
Yeah,
cut him after.
this could be a situation where the Bears are just using this as a transition year and just keep building for the future. But in that pursuit for a better team one day, who do you think they're going to go with here with the 3rd pick?
Well, assuming Jamal Adams is already off the board, then they'd probably take Jonathan Allen, the defensive end from Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. I think you do go Jonathan Allen here. But the thing is, a lot of people have been questioning his durability. I know he's had 2 shoulder surgeries during his time at Bama, so I know a lot of teams are red flagging that. But Jonathan Allen, during the season, he was projected to go even first overall for some time. So I think the Bears just have to get a playmaker on defense. And if Jamal Adams is off the board, I think you go Jonathan Allen.
Certainly. I mean, same thing with a Bama guy. He's gonna be a bright player. He's gonna play
Work hard.
Yeah. If you're not gonna play 3 years under Nick Saban and not know how to work your butt off. He definitely demands that. But Bears need a lot of help in a lot of places. But I think an interesting pick here could be Marshawn Lattimore from Ohio State. Ohio State's been getting a lot of guys in the league lately. I mean, shoot, I think they had 10 guys get drafted last year early.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
it was ridiculous. It was Ohio State every other pick, it seemed
Mhm.
like. But they got another strong class. Getting a cornerback out of there wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kyle Fuller was playing really well last season before he got injured. So if Marshawn Lattimore got to pair up with Will Fuller, they'd have a really good secondary.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the 4th pick, I know this is close to Jacob's heart with their quarterback being Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles is my favorite player, and I will.
Interesting choice.
And,
Yes,
and I heard you might have had a.
I
run-in
had
with
a
Blake
close
Bortles.
encounter with him yesterday. Walking back from class, he was on his way to the Eric Church concert here in downtown Phoenix, I
You
believe.
saw him here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for a picture though,
Yeah,
which
well,
I'm
did you
I'll
at
never
least-
forgive myself. So,
Do you at least ask them who they think they're gonna pick?
well, no, but I asked myself that question,
Okay.
and I think they're personally gonna go Leonard Fournette here out of Louisiana State. Chris Ivory, I'm a Jets fan. Chris Ivory hasn't really worked out for them so far. I know it's been 1 year, and you can't really judge someone based off of 1 year. But Chris Ivory, I don't know. I don't think he's a starter in the league. And TJ Yeldon, who they drafted out of Alabama a couple years ago, hasn't worked out. He's maybe just a change of pace back at this point. Leonard Fournette will give you everything on the field. You know, a little injury prone, you know, during his college.
Certainly, he had some lingering injuries his senior year, but I think, or excuse me, not his senior year, his junior year at LSU. He came out early, but I think LSU did a good job. You know, they didn't really ride him too hard his last year. They kind of shut him down.
He
the
sat
last
out the
few
bowl
weeks.
game too. So.
He sat at the bowl game. He
Mhm.
didn't play in any the All-Star games like the enshrinement game. So I think he should be fresh and ready to go. I like Leonard Fournette going off the board that early too.
I like this pick because, no offense to your friend Blake Bortles, but it really does the best to minimize his role because last season was not a great season for him. So.
You know, and what's funny is that some mock drafts do have them moving on from Blake Bortles. Now with Tom Coughlin coming in and running the team, there's a chance that Tom Coughlin might not trust Blake Bortles with the key, quote-unquote keys to the car.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then you could see a Trubisky or a Watson come off the board here. But I do think he's young enough, Blake Bortles, and I think that they could give him another year maybe to show that his sophomore season was not a
Yeah, and even if
fluke.
Even if they do want to move on from him, I don't think they'll do it at 4, maybe an early second round pick,
Yes.
not at number 4.
I agree.
Yeah, with the 5th pick, we got the Titans coming in, which they obviously had a better season than their pick. That's because they're getting it from the Rams via trade. And this is where I think Jonathan Allen's possibly going to go. He won't be on the board too long. I'd be surprised if he's still there with the Titans. I think they'll get him. He'll be a nice addition to a team that really, given their conference AFC South, they may be.
They were in it last year.
They were. I think last week of the season they were still alive for the playoffs. So I don't think
they
the Titans.
finished with a tied record with the Texans. So
Mhm.
if Mariota didn't get hurt.
Yes, that's a big question mark with them is can Mariota stay healthy? Because both of his seasons so far, he's was lost for the season due to an injury. So, you know, I don't know. I think Mariota is a great quarterback personally. So I think they're gonna stray away from maybe drafting a quarterback here. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they're gonna look to draft Marshawn Lattimore, the cornerback out of Ohio State. They don't really have many corners right now, and I feel like you could plug Marshawn Lattimore in from day one, and he will take off from it. So,
Certainly. Yeah, well, the Titans are definitely one of those teams. Between Titans and the Jags being in that weak division, they get a good draft pick here at 4 and 5, and all of a sudden we could see a shift in that division, and perhaps those teams are making runs for the playoffs.
Yeah.
But number 6, to your beloved New York Jets.
well,
We'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be playing?
I hope it's Malik Hooker. I think he is an Ed Reed-like safety. I think he can come in from day one and start, which is something that the Jets need. They got rid of a lot of their team this offseason, and they're starting to rebuild. And I think Hooker is a person that you could build from. He's a franchise cornerstone in the secondary, which we need now since Darrelle Revis is off the team.
Definitely. I think Jets are going safety. I mean, whether it's going to be Malik Hooker or Jamal Adams, one of those two guys should be there. And, yeah, they need help with Revis gone, and they were getting burned.
Yeah,
It seemed
and
bad.
Calvin Pryor's not living up to hype.
He had no.
So Jets need a lot of help. I mean, some people think perhaps they get a Dalvin Cook or a Fournette, whoever's there on the
Maybe
board.
a quarterback.
They could possibly, there's a lot of openings I think on that Jets roster. So we'll see where they go, but man, they need some help in defensive backfield. So I think they go that direction. And with the 7th pick, just behind the Jets, very new. Hold on, I've been practicing saying this. The Los Angeles Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers. Still unbelievably weird to say. We'll see how long it takes for everybody to catch up to the new name. I mean, it's a team probably playing fourth fiddle in its city behind the Rams, Raiders, and Niners. But nonetheless, they still got a Hall of Fame quarterback, possibly with Phillip Rivers. They got Keenan Allen. They still have some players there, so they're not too far away, perhaps, from making a playoff run. Who do you think they're gonna go with, Jacob?
I mean, it's tough to say who is still gonna be on the board at this point, because I could see them going a hooker if he's still on the board if the Jets don't take him. I could see them going Marshawn Lattimore if he's still on the board too. So I don't know. They could go a whole bunch of ways. I think they're definitely gonna go. Defense. They could. I can make the argument for Mike Williams too. I mean, they got rid of Stevie Johnson, and Keenan Allen obviously can't stay healthy.
It's true.
So maybe Mike Williams or Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. But
I think they might go Cam Robinson, the tackle out of Alabama, because they cut King Dunlap, they cut DJ Fluker. Their line was already bad, and the offense isn't usually the problem, but I think they've got to address the tackle early.
Definitely. I saw a stat where it was the Chargers haven't drafted a offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds in, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 years. Something outrageously long for having a older, kind of immobile quarterback in Phillip Rivers. He's obviously held up in his career. Very tough guy.
throws a lot of interceptions.
Throws a lot of interceptions, but, he hasn't been surrounded by too much, so I think they're going to go wide receiver. I think they're going to add a weapon. Perhaps a Corey Davis, Western Michigan, that's interesting. I think that's a guy that you really got to keep your eyes on. Perhaps a Antonio Brown type coming out of the MAC and making a splash with a lot of speed. But I think they're going to address the wide receiver position, get Corey Davis or perhaps Mike Williams from Clemson. So staying in the Carolina Panthers pick after the Chargers at number 8.
They could go a lot of ways.
They could go a lot of ways, and
they're a very talented team. Like I don't get why they're in the top 10.
Very talented. Like you said, how are they in the top 10? They were 15-1. Almost went undefeated a year ago. Obviously eventually lost to Peyton Manning and the Broncos in the Super Bowl, but. Who knows where they go. I think for the sake of what that team needs, I think Cam Newton's been getting beat up a lot. I think they're going to try to protect him. I say they either get a nice offensive lineman or get a tight end, perhaps like an O.J. Howard, Alabama. Somebody that can protect, can also go out, be a nice, easy dump off pass for Cam, and just kind of open up that offense some more.
Yeah. And then you could do like double tight end sets and with Greg Olsen and O.J. Howard. It worked out for the Patriots, so I don't see why it can't work out for the Panthers.
I think they could also maybe take Dalvin Cook because Jonathan Stewart's getting up there, and he signed a 1-year extension. But I think Dalvin Cook's a definite possibility.
I'm gonna go in a complete different boat. I think that this could be where Solomon Thomas could go if he doesn't go number 2. They traded Coney Ealy this offseason to the Patriots.
Yeah, Coney
Ealy, yeah. So, they don't have a defensive end right now.
Yeah,
and I think Solomon Thomas could slide right in there and start from day one, honestly.
Yeah, they re-signed Peppers, but he's about 1 million years old.
He is. And I think they'll probably look to play him in, the outside linebacker role, which is where he played for Green Bay, too, for a bit, so... They could go a whole bunch of ways.
He'll probably be a situational pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
So they could definitely use a better starter.
Yeah.
And then right after the Panthers, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that still has yet to win a playoff game under Marvin Lewis. I swear he's been the coach there
10 years now.
I think it's even longer than that. He has to be the longest tenured coach without a playoff win. But nonetheless, they kind of had it. They made the playoffs just a year ago, but this past year they took a dip. I think only finished 6-10, and they find themselves drafting the top 10. Who do you think they're gonna try to go after there with that 9th pick?
During the season, I read a mock draft. It was actually Matt Miller from Bleacher Report's mock draft, and he said, and I quote, that Reuben Foster is a perfect fit for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I do think Reuben Foster will come off the board here. I think that's like the one pick that, like, besides the first overall, that, like, you know what it's gonna be. There was an incident at the combine with him being sent home early for getting into an argument with some combine worker.
I think it was one of the coaches. I think one of the coaches running the combine.
Maybe. And, is that going to hurt his stock a little bit? I'm sure, like, attitude issues maybe. But I think at the end of the day, Reuben Foster is a perfect fit for the Bengals.
We're gonna make it a clean sweep. I think Reuben Foster makes sense. They gotta address defense, especially their linebacker core. It's pretty depleted. And Reuben Foster, even though he's got a little bit of perhaps an issue with acting up at the combine, I still like my chances drafting somebody that played for Nick Saban.
Yeah, there's nothing more to say. We all agree on this one.
Mm-hmm. With the 10th pick, got the Buffalo Bills, the longest stretch for a franchise in the NFL without a playoff appearance. I think it's been since 1999.
When they made it to 4 straight Super Bowls with Jim Kelly, right?
I think it was a little bit after that.
Was it?
That was
I think that was like early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like early 90s.
I didn't watch the E60 on it, so...
Hey,
30 for 30 on it, so...
That's okay. That's okay. But, yeah, Buffalo, they've got kind of a monkey on their back, and they can go a lot of directions, but... I think this is where we get the first quarterback off the board. Now, it's not often that you're at the 10th pick and there's still not a QB off the board, but this is kind of a weaker class. But I think this is Mitch Trubisky's territory right here. I think they're going to – I know they had a little success with Tyrod Taylor, but overall, man, they have just not been able to get a guy and stay behind a guy there in a quarterback position for the Bills. So I think they're going to try to get Trubisky and kind of ride with him.
I'm going to have to disagree. I think Tyrod Taylor has been the best quarterback that Buffalo has had since Jim Kelly. I'm just going to go off on a limb and say that. I think they're going to get him help.
Drew Bledsoe, the early 2000s, but that's okay. We were pretty young.
Okay, all right. I think with Sammy Watkins, he can't stay healthy.
What are you thinking, Mike Williams?
I'm thinking Mike Williams or Corey Davis. Who's ever still on the board there, you just go for it. Or I could see O.J. Howard too, maybe. Like
I agree
Charles Clay hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been good. So, I think you roll with Tyrod Taylor for one more year, because next year's draft class in quarterbacks is pretty good on paper. So if Tyrod Taylor doesn't work out this year, you could just aim for next year. But get him some help. Get him a Corey Davis. Get him a Mike Williams, who's ever still on the board. Maybe.
And if Sammy Watkins can finally manage to stay healthy, they'd be pretty deadly together. But I agree on Mike Williams.
All right, moving on just out of the top 10 to the 11th pick, the New Orleans Saints. And if there is a team over the past few seasons who has showed a weakness in defense compared to offense, I think it would be the beloved Saints. Obviously, defense has been ranked in the bottom 5, 10 in every defensive category in the past season, so they got to go defense here. I'm thinking Derek Barnett, defensive end out of Tennessee. Watched him plenty of games in college. He's a beast. He seems like one of those guys that could come in and start day one. But perhaps maybe not. The Saints did go the defensive tackle route last year with Sheldon Rankins, but they still got to boost up that D-line. I think they're going Derek Barnett.
I agree with you. I think Derek Barnett does come off of the board here. He's a very talented rusher, something that they need. I mean, if you look at their previous draft classes, like they drafted Kakua out of Washington, is that his name? Mm-hmm. Who's had 3 ACL tears or 2 ACL tears since
some injury prone.
Yeah, so Look, I think Derek Barnett is definitely the safest prospect to go. Something that they definitely need. And, yeah.
I think it will go Barnett, but if they didn't, I think they're probably going to go Tre'Davious White, cornerback, because their secondary is pretty awful, and especially if they can't manage to get Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, that's big.
I don't think they'll get him, and I don't. But if they don't get him, Tre'Davious White's probably a good possibility.
Mm-hmm. And that would be a guy staying in state. Obviously, went to LSU. Would bring a lot more fans in, and I think anytime a team's always a little attracted to that one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got the 12th pick,
which is the Browns.
Which is the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they have more room to play with. They have more cap space than any other team. They've already drafted first. We think everybody's kind of agreeing they're going to get Myles Garrett, but where do you think they're going to go with their second pick of the first round?
You got to go QB here. I mean, I know they traded for Brock Osweiler, but is he really a starter in this league?
I don't think he is, but I don't have enough faith in the quarterbacks of this class.
I think you either go Trubisky or Watson, who's ever still on the board. Stay away from Deshaun Kaiser. Stay away from forgetting his name. But, Patrick Mahomes. Just stay away. Mm-hmm. I mean, they need someone that could come in right now. Mm-hmm. Kaiser and Mahomes are more, you sit on the bench for a couple of years, and then maybe you could play. I personally think they're going to go Trubisky. Hugh Jackson has said that he liked Trubisky in college, so maybe they'll pull the trigger on it.
That was probably good because, yeah, I agree that Brock Osweiler is not good enough, but I think maybe they might just wait another year while they just because they keep hoarding these. They have 11 draft picks in this draft, and I think 12 in the next draft. They're just hoarding draft picks, so I think they might just wait another year.
They have plenty of time to play with. I think if they don't get a QB here, I think they got to go defense. They got to keep bolstering that defense. Perhaps get Quincy Wilson out of Florida or Marlon Humphrey out of Bama. I think it's a safer pick, and perhaps pick a quarterback in like you guys said, in a draft class that's a little bit stronger on that end. And 13 overall, we got the local Arizona Cardinals. Obviously had a dip last year after almost making it to the Super Bowl the year before. Only won 7 games last year, so perhaps a little uneasiness out there in Glendale with the Cardinals. What do you think they're going to do?
I could see them going defense for sure. I mean, they lost some defensive players this year.
They lost Tony Jefferson.
Yeah, so, maybe bolstering the secondary, maybe. Tease Tabor out of Florida comes to mind. Marlon Humphrey comes to mind. But I could also see them going and taking the heir to Carson Palmer's throne in a Deshaun Kaiser or a Patrick Mahomes, which a lot of mock drafts do have them going. So it'll be very interesting to see how Arians will, go about this draft.
I think we're running out of time here at Coast to Coast. So went through the first 13 picks. Obviously, a lot more picks left in the first round. So why don't you guys just kind of highlight who do you think that somebody's name we haven't said that's going to go in the first round, perhaps later in the first round, but it's going to be able to make an impact right away. Who do you kind of got as that late round sleeper?
I don't know if you could call him a sleeper, but Christian McCaffrey, starting out in the season, he was a projected top 10 pick. He kind of slid down a little bit. They were saying second, third round maybe, but after a good combine, I think he bolstered his first round resume. I could see him going to a team like the Packers, a team like the Chiefs, just a team that could utilize him very well. Like, he could do almost anything, catch, run, anything. He could probably throw the ball better than half the quarterbacks in the league.
Honestly, he's definitely one of those all-around athletes. Where do you think who do you think is going to be kind of making a splash right away, Jack?
I really like Hassan Reddick, the linebacker out of Temple. He played mostly as a pass rusher, but he I think it was the Senior Bowl he played in, where he played as an inside linebacker, and he did really good. So he could probably play both for teams that are pretty needy, like the Steelers or somewhere around there.
Now, a guy I'm going to kind of highlight here, you may or may not have heard of his older brother, J.J. Watt. This is T.J. Watt out of the same school, Wisconsin. kind of similar to J.J. Watt as far as his college career, kind of improved year by year, was kind of made a splash in his last season at Wisconsin. I think that's a guy, not to go purely off of pedigree, but he's obviously got it. I mean, he's got, I think, 3 or 4 other people in his family who have played in the NFL. He's definitely got it. He's a guy that plays with motor, and he's an edge rusher. And if there's one thing in the NFL that you can that gets a lot of use out of, it's a guy that can come off the edge and rush the quarterback, especially nowadays when teams are passing more than they ever have before. So keep your eyes on T.J. Watt there. So that was the highlight, who we think might make a splash right away. Who do you think kind of has bust written all over him? Who's the team going to draft, give a big contract, and then this guy's going to go away within a year or two? Who's got the ability to bust?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Jabril Peppers. Look, he could play a whole bunch of positions, linebacker, safety. They even said cornerback and running back too. Like, I don't know about that. This guy has only had 1 career interception in 3 years at Michigan. I mean, if you're going to play safety, I would hope you would have more than 1 career interception in 3 years of starting. So, look, I don't want to say he's going to be a bust, but I don't think he's a first rounder. But he probably will wind up going in the first round.
I was also going to say Peppers, and I have such little faith in him. Unless a team like, I know the Titans have their defensive coordinator. He was the Steelers'
Dick LeBeau.
Dick LeBeau. He was the Steelers' coordinator with Palomalu. I could see maybe him as like the only person that could know how to use Peppers right in a Palomalu-like role. Mm-hmm. But I think most other teams, if they take him, Peppers isn't going to work. That's my pick too.
I'm gonna go the quarterback route. I'm gonna go and say that whichever quarterback gets drafted first, that guy's just not gonna do well. I think all around this is a weak class. Trubisky has the ability to do that. I think we'll probably see, besides Trubisky, 2 more quarterbacks come off in the first round. I think Deshaun Watson, some team will pick him, and also with Patrick Mahomes, I think he goes out in the first round. But with guys like a Deshaun Watson or Trubisky, I think what we've seen, if you watch film or you hear the experts talk about them, they have a real hard ability of reading their next route. If the first guy's covered, second guy's covered, then they kind of run into trouble. When you talk about the NFL, sometimes you have to go through all your reads and then go through them again. So you got to have a guy that can really do that right away, and I don't think any quarterback in this class can do that. So I think a Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson, I think you're going to see those guys struggle right away. But also, I think Christian McCaffrey can fall in that boat. He's a guy that was great in college, but as we've seen, just because you're great in college doesn't mean you translate into pros. I think he has to go into a very specific system that unless he gets with that right team, gets with the right quarterback, he could have some trouble. But I think that's all we have for today. A very beautiful Wednesday here in Phoenix, Arizona, getting excited about the draft. Any closing remarks? Any other thing you guys looking for in the draft? Is the draft party at your house or?
Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite day of the year. It's my favorite weekend of the year. Mm-hmm. So of course, come by.
Certainly. All right. Well, for Jack Winn and Jacob Lev, I'm Joseph Caulo. Thank you for listening in, and